Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Veg Networking Canada. We are a community where vegan plant-based companies connect and collaborate. It is important to honor, acknowledge, and respect that many of us are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. Today, we have a special guest who is a champion for multiculturalism, coming to us with a background in international marketing, brand management, and business communications. And she is on a mission to combine her expertise in fashion with her compassion for nature. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce the founder of Jeane and Jax. Welcome, Silvia Gallo.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be part of this community and having this conversation.
Speaking of the conversation, let's kick it off, and you can tell everybody listening who's with us live and who will be listening a little bit later on their own time. What does the plant-based vegan lifestyle mean to your brand and to you personally?
Okay, so I started on the mission of my brand in 2014. Most of it was related to the cruelty-free and vegan side of the business. We obviously wanted to show consumers that you can have a high quality product with high workmanship, ethically sourced, without having to use animals to do so. And within that journey along the way, we were introduced and obviously always actively searching on the market to not only be positioned as vegan, but also sustainable. So in 2014, there weren't that many options, and we were happily supporting the ethical free side of it, but we did still have to recognize that within these products, there were still, petrochemicals and plastics that were not necessarily helping the environment other than the impact of removing the animal portion of it. So along the way, through our education, through meeting with other suppliers, and through technology, which I'm very happy to see, here we are almost 10 years later, the introduction of more and more plant-based materials. And for us, it's really important that it's become a conversation, a part of a lifestyle, part of conscious decision making. So for myself, like we were talking about how identify myself as vegetarian, because I'm always like that person who I'm never perfect in something, right? Like as much as I choose the way I live my lifestyle, I don't know if I'm having a salad dressing that has honey in it, or if I don't know if I'm somewhere, and I'm always choosing to not label myself as something specific, because I know that I can always do better and grow better and find out more. There's some people we were talking that is 1 year vegan, 5 years vegan. So for me, it's that path and that journey of getting to a point where I understand also even more so what a total vegan society would be. But for me, it's the elimination of the animals and the sustainability, and trying to really help consumers make conscious decisions, because any little decision we can make collectively, any way we can reduce in our lives the usage of animals, any way we can live a more plant-based life. I'm also living more plant-based life because of health issues, there's so many topics we could get on, how meat and inflammation and all this other stuff causes to the body. But beyond all of that, it's really about collectively making little decisions that can make a bigger impact.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of your entrepreneurial spark or your entrepreneurial origin story, when and where and how did that come? It's such an interesting question, because that's what Veg Networking Canada is all about. It's all about entrepreneurs and business owners, and it's fascinating for all of us to kind of get a glimpse into how somebody got their start. So how did that unfold for you?
So I come from a family of multiple entrepreneurs. As my grandparents were immigrated to Canada in some in the 50s and some, one said in the 50s, one said in the 60s, and they came for a better life They came for, means of creating something and building something. And through that, a lot of my family members, started their own businesses and were entrepreneurs. So I grew up very much encased in like a family lifestyle that people were entrepreneurs. So that was always in the back of my head. But I went through, I got a Bachelor of Commerce in Marketing International Business, and I went through my schooling in business. And then I started my career as a brand manager in brand management for multiple, I don't know if I'm dating myself, but I was a brand manager for Baby Fat Canada, and was for Michael Kors and for Puma. So over the years, I definitely wanted to work with other companies to build my know-how, my knowledge, my experience, both in Canada and internationally. And then there was a point in my life where I felt like then I was always marketing somebody else's brand. I was always pushing somebody else's vision. And I just felt it's time that now it's my voice, my passion, my vision. And it was working with Puma in Germany and seeing how advanced they were in sustainability, and then being part of this fashion world where everything was very much based around leather, real leather, and there was only a few, if not one, prominent brand out there that was doing vegan. So I said, you know what, I really want to show how you can have a really good, high quality product, workmanship, and even material wise, that could look and feel the same way, but eliminate the usage of animals. So all of that together, my business, my background, my family history, my passion for what I wanted more in the future, kind of put it all together and started the company.
Well, that's a great recap to bring us up to speed on how it started, which is a perfect segue into the next question, which is where is jeane and Jax going in the future? But before you answer that, I just got to say, for me personally, and maybe there's a few other people chuckling, have not thought of Baby Fat for I don't know how long. So thank you for the chuckle.
That's how old I am.
I remember it as well. So to that end, thank you for bringing us up to speed. So in the future, where's jeane and Jax going?
So jeane and Jax, in mentioning the evolution of how we started, and more and more so, we're going into materials that were sustainable. We were able this year, we've been having conversations now for almost 2 years, but working in collaboration with NFW, with the material called Mirum, and with the Vishen factory, which is a sustainable factory that we're collaborating a lot with. They're very knowledgeable in sustainability, and they've helped a lot along the way. So we've been developing some style, a collection rather, that we're going to launch in 2024. That will be the Mirum collection, which is 100% natural, 100% plastic free, all natural, and the first ever of its kind vegan leather alternative that is now plastic free. So that's super exciting for us to be moving into a segment that is totally bio-based, the circular economy, plastic free, everything that discussions that we're having now is really exciting.
Absolutely exciting. Totally. Now, what are some and this doesn't necessarily inherently always imply that it is positive, right? There are sometimes trends or transformations that are positive and some that might not be. So on to that end, what are some trends or transformations that you've noticed in your industry over your time?
So for sure, the greenwashing right now, because when we first started, it went from vegan to vegan leather. Vegan leather is actually not a material. It's being used a lot, in advertising, and the word vegan itself has been used a lot in advertising to somehow make the company, yes, it's good right off the bat that on the ethical side that they're not using animals, but it doesn't make it eco. It doesn't make it like, I've seen in the press where people are calling their vegan leather, biodegradable, or using words that are actually not factual. So a plastic cannot be biodegradable. It could be degraded. It could be recycled, but it needs human intervention. So there's a lot about the materials that are being used in the industry that are not properly educated. Like transparency is key right now, and they're not properly being explained, whether it's on their website or what they do. It's again, it's kind of masking a little bit. And for us, this time right now is really big on transparency. We really want to, beyond the transparency is the education. It's not easy for people to know this because they're fed different information from different sources. So it's very important for us to be factual and to be transparent. On our website, we even show, when we're talking about the Vision Factory, you even have links to go see who they are and what they do, and you know, the fair labor side of it and the ethical side of it. Like all of this these are things that we all want. Everyone's been asking for, but we need to be accountable for whether we're actually providing them or not. So we just want to be more transparent in who makes our products, what are they made of, when we say this, what do we mean? You know, like, so it's a little hard because again, these marketing terms are being used a little loosely right now. So we're just on that mission to try and make things better.
Yeah, totally. It brings up a special guest that we had a while ago who was talking about blockchain technology and how that can be paired with the battle for transparency and eliminating greenwashing and really, you know, getting to the source of that. So that's interesting when you talk about that from trends and transformations. It's really important for fashion, and you bring up a good point too. It's akin to when people say just because something's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy,
Right.
right? So just because something is in the fashion space being labeled as vegan doesn't mean that it is eco or sustainable or whatever it might be. So great point,
Exactly.
great point. So in terms of charity, or
Yeah.
otherwise known as giving back,
Yeah.
some of our guests talk about what they have done in the past or what they're currently doing personally, what charity or giving back means to them, and or what their company does. Inherently, you can imagine here at Veg Network in Canada, we're talking to entrepreneurs and businesses and companies that already are giving back by making the world a better place and helping people, planet, and you know, animals and whatnot. But for you, what does charity or giving back mean? And what does it mean to Jeane and Jax?
I mean, for us, it means helping in whatever way we can for either those who are less fortunate or organizations that are supporting great causes and need support from people and brands that especially have the same visions and are aligned. Like for us, a lot of the charities we've worked with along the years have been Humane Society International, SPCA, and another one that we're working a lot with right now is called Animal Justice out of Toronto. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but it's basically lawyers who are giving voices to animals in the courtroom. Basically, they're fighting for laws to protect animals more. They're shining spotlights on companies that need accountability for the misuse and mistreatment of animals, and organizations like this, they can't really move forward unless they do have support. They're nonprofit, right? Anytime we talk about organizations, they're nonprofit, they're going out there, they're doing all of this in the name of, but they need the support, you know? So that's why we like to align ourselves. I mean, and then obviously we've given to local charities and women's shelters. We've never thrown anything. So it's like we never ever since the beginning have ever, like, even if something has like a faulty zipper or things happen, right? And there's no reason to not still use that product. Sometimes we were making extra straps to give away with our bags, and we've always repurposed them. We've found a way to donate them. We're talking with an interesting startup in Montreal, which I'm hoping can get, you know, started soon. but we want to start to do a take back program. So at the end of the life cycle of the bag, we'll take it back and we'll donate it to this company who basically takes apart different, whether it's clothing or bags or whatever, not whatever other material, what materials can still be used and how they could be repurposed and upcycled in any way possible to then be to resold or reused to extend life cycle. So we're trying our best in the circularity side of it, in the charity side of it, whatever we can do to support the groups that are helping the cause.
Yeah, so it sounds like quite a well-established, as they say, multi-pronged approach to giving back or charity, which is great. And by the way, we are familiar with animal justice. You're in great company because last week, just 7 days ago, we had the executive director, Camille Labchuk, on as a special guest. So,
Amazing.
Yeah. So, all right. And of course, you mentioned some other great outfits as well that don't go without saying. So, okay, in terms of resources, I think, not to put you on the spot, but I think you have like a little bit of a different or interesting answer to this question. We've had other people talk about individuals or books or documentaries or whatever it might be, but what resources have helped you in your journey? So perhaps someone else who's into sustainable fashion listening to this can think, oh, that's great. I never knew that. And that's the purpose of this question. You can we can extract what has worked for you or helped you so it might help others.
Perfect. So, I mean, resources wise, for me, the biggest is the material side. I was always visiting material markets when I was visiting China, and predominantly when I was looking into more recycled options that were available at the time. And then started to hear about different plant-based materials. So the first that I heard about was the Piñatex. So working with suppliers to test that out. But beyond that, it started out with conferences. So the first one was called Remote in LA that I had visited. And there, when I was there, they were introducing the new Milo, Bolt Threads was introducing Milo, or Frumat was introducing apple skin. So it was through this initial conference that I continued to network with the material suppliers and other networks. So within there, slowly after that, there was COVID and everyone is home, and you're thinking, well, how can I make my time productive when there's a lot that's being shut down right now? We cannot be pushing products when people are like worried about, what is this, illness here? What is this disease? What is COVID? So at that time, I was using my time to just network and do webinars and Zooms and all these different networking with either the Material Innovation Initiative program or with Vision Factory, with Joey from Vision. We were just having conversations about the future and different materials. And through this, again, I say calling a network of like-minded individuals who were in the sustainable market and are ultimately trying to find better ways to produce and use materials for handbags. That's how I gained a lot of knowledge. In talking to these companies and talking with these different individuals, that's how my main research. I mean, like, we could read articles and I've read a lot of other type of material, but really that's the hands-on approach, talking to the source of either the people who make the materials or the people who use them every day in the factories, that I really gained a lot of information on what, in my knowledge, was the ultimate material I wanted to end up using, which was Mirum.
And on that note about materials, coming up soon, whether at the end of this year or maybe early mid next year, you have a two-set lineup of bags, the Hope bag and the Harmony bag.
Exactly.
So I say that to preface the second to last question for you, which is around inspiration. So with titles like Hope and Harmony, that just sounds like a natural
Mm.
segue into what does inspiration mean to Silvia, and what does it mean to Jeane and Jax?
Yeah. So, I mean, being in fashion, there's obviously going to be inspiration coming from the trends, like market trends. I get inspired by the needs of individuals, where we look at a bag and we design it not only because it's pretty, but because it's functional. And then the reasons behind, let's say, the way I designed the Hope and Harmony bag. Right now, the Miram material was coming on sheets, so we also wanted to be thinking about not wasting material. So let's create a pattern that will specifically fit within that sheet. So the inspiration of the size of the bag came also in thinking of, making sure there's no extra wastage of materials. The design of the bag is inspired by the luxury side of where the brand is headed. And then the pockets and the stuff, like I said, is like functional. So it's really it's really multifaceted when I think of designing a bag, and making sure that it's also related to the material. This is new material, right? So we don't know how it'll react with something really heavy, or with, like, these are along the way. When you use materials, you really do have to test them, and we've went through multiple sample stages to make sure that the designs we're using also work well with the materials we're using. So everything starts with a concept, and then it kind of evolves into what it actually becomes, right?
Yeah, to your point, like being in fashion or art, like that in and of itself is definitely a source of inspiration in so many different ways. But summarizing what you said, it sounds like inspiration for you and Jeane and Jax is functionality in the client experience, and then also the old adage, waste not, want not,
Right.
which is interesting. So great. All right. So last question for you. We have some folks who are very happy to say, yep, I feel okay giving other people advice. They're
Mm.
totally fine framing it that way. Other people say, well, I'm not going to give you advice, but I can tell you tips or lessons or wisdom or things that have worked or not worked for me that I can impart on you, and you can take it for what as you wish. But that's the last question for you. It's very open-ended because you might be speaking to people who are in a 9 to 5, who have a passion that they want to pursue.
Yeah.
You might also, someone else might be listening where they are an entrepreneur, brand new, in the middle, near the end, just a wide swath of folks. Big open-ended question for you, Silvia,
Right.
about lessons, wisdom, tips, or advice for people listening as it relates to business and entrepreneurship, because that's what Veg Network in Canada is all about.
Yeah. So again, big question. There's probably a lot right now. I'm going to focus my thoughts, but so you have a passion, and you want to go out and do something about it. Just be true to that passion, align yourself, make sure the messaging is always consistent, like not only on the passion side, but on it's part of the business side, right? Like for me, I always had my own DNA, if you wish, right? There's other brands on the market doing their own thing. You get inspiration from all over the place, but at the end of the day, you always have to be true to yourself, to your own values, to your own passion, and the brand needs to always align in that way, in that respect. In terms of branding, in terms of business, keep a balance. We've been through a lot, and we've learned a lot throughout the years, and because we put, like over the years, sometimes I had some my mentors or bosses that would say, business is business. You don't put emotions into business, right? And for me, I was having a hard time with that, because I put in the passion, I put in the compassion, right? The empathy. There is a lot of emotions I do put into business, and I think it actually does pay off as an entrepreneur. I think it helps when you're making, team building, and you're being a leader, let's say, with employees or with other people in the industry. And so I like the balance, like to keep the balance in life, to make sure that yes, it is a business, but there's a purpose behind it. And we don't need to necessarily cut off our emotions on that side. And then, you know, do the best to just network and be part of something greater, because it's a very lonely place. Like being an entrepreneur can be very lonely. And the more you align yourself, like what I've been talking about the last couple of years, when it's just been like connecting with this network of like-minded individuals that have the same, you know, purpose and want to evolve into this, like towards the same direction, it makes things a little easier, because we don't always have the answers. I always say to like, we're not perfect. We're not a perfect brand. We're not a perfect company. We try our best to better ourselves all the time. But as much as you think, you know, someone else may help or spark an idea that you wouldn't have thought of on your own. So, you know, be part of something greater instead of thinking of like just being on your, you can continue on your path, but open yourself up to different experiences.
Yeah, and it might be the CEO who sparked the idea, but it also might be the janitor, or it might be the grocery store owner, or it
100%.
might be the cashier. So just continue to be open-minded regardless of who's in front of you. So, all right,
100%.
Sylvia. As always, at the very end, we kind of leave the floor open. If there's anything that you want to mention for your brand, any announcements, anything that you have to say, anything maybe that came up in the conversation that you want to double back to, or maybe anything that was missed, no pressure or expectations, but the floor is sort of yours. And then after that, we'll let people know where they can find out more online and on Instagram.
Okay. Well, first thing I do want to mention, in case people are wondering, Jean is my middle name and Jax is my dog. So that is also like the balance of myself and my fur baby. But yeah, what I did want to maybe go back to in referencing like what we were talking about in terms of the transparency side and everything that we're doing. Again, we're not perfect. I don't think anyone is, no company, no person. And our true mission is just to get people to think differently, just to be a little bit more conscious in the decisions that they make. At the end of the day, the power is in the hands of the consumer. We're not saying we're better than any other version of, but we do want to give an option to show that it can be done, and you do have options that are whether more ethical, whether more sustainable. And at the end of the day, collectively, I think we could make a bigger difference.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. For all of you conscious consumers who enjoy thinking differently, you can check out more online, www. I don't think I need to say that in today's day and age, but www.jeaneandjax.com. Jeane, the word and, jax.com. jeaneandjax.com. And the exact same on Instagram at jeaneandjax. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Veg Networking Canada. Today has been a great conversation with the founder of Jeane and Jax, Silvia Gallo. Thank you so much for joining us, Silvia, and everybody else. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll catch you soon on another episode. Take care and bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.